Today, I'm going to be going over some of the biggest name UFAs that are available this offseason. Starting us off, we have probably the biggest name available in the offseason at any position, and that is, of course, Evgeny Malkin. His current contract has a cap hit of $9.5 million, and he had 42 points in 41 games played this season. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in Pittsburgh. They have a lot of decisions to make. They're very much arguably the better team when they played the Rangers this year in the playoffs in the first round, and they probably should have won that series, even with missing Jari and DeSmith. Uh, I mean, you look at how that series played out. I believe they had a lead, multiple goal lead in game five and game six, maybe game seven too. I can't remember, but they had a lot of blown leads. But they have a lot of interesting decisions to make in this offseason. Malkin, of course, is not the only big name that is an unrestricted free agent from Pittsburgh. Now, looking at other forwards, we have Claude Giroux, had a pretty good season, played well in Florida, I thought. Uh, his current contract has a cap hit of 8.275 million. He had 65 points this year. I don't really know where he's gonna go at the trade deadline. He said he only wanted to go to Florida. Maybe that's because he thought that gave him the best chance to win a cup. Maybe he just likes Florida. Maybe he has some friends down there. I don't know. But another interesting name. Third on this list, and these are sorted by cap hit, is Phil Kessel. Kessel obviously getting up there in age, but I thought he still had a very solid season. He had 52 points, not scoring as many goals these days, but getting that many assists on a really just awful Coyotes team was pretty impressive. He didn't really look like he's lost much pace in his game or anything like that. He can still score. So if he wants to play, I'm sure there'll be a team that'll sign him. What the cap hit will be is yet to be determined. I'm not sure exactly what his value is going to be, and he also, I believe, has an Ironman streak going, which now, if he does play next year, I believe he's in really good position to break Yandel's Ironman. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Kessel goes. I don't think he's going to retire. There are some names that I have left off these lists because I think there are players that are likely to retire, and some players who are technically UFAs but haven't been playing for a while because of injury or whatever or some other reason. But yeah, going down the list, we also have Patrice Bergeron, also getting up there in age. I believe he said he won't play anywhere other than Boston. So that makes, I guess Boston has a lot of decisions to be making this year too. They're kind of like Pittsburgh, another bubble-ish team. Still have a relatively solid core, especially if they get Bergeron back. But obviously they fired Bruce Cassidy. I get the impression they're going to be going in a rebuilding direction, so it would not surprise me at all to see Bergeron retired. And if that is the end of Bergeron, well, I don't think he's going to have too many regrets about his career. Absolutely great player, had a great career, and yeah, the league will be a little bit less skilled without him, I guess. Although there could be a lot of good rookies around the league coming in to bring a new set of skill. Next on the list, and perhaps the most high profile player other than Malkin, or maybe these guys are like neck and neck at this point. I don't know. Johnny Gaudreau, of course, Johnny Hockey, $6.75 million cap hit on his current contract. He is going to be getting a substantial raise, I imagine. He had 115 points this season. Just unreal season. Played really, really well there in Calgary. I suspect Calgary will be doing everything they can to keep him in a flame sweater. But if he hits the free market, there might be teams that are capable of outbidding Calgary. Calgary does have a good amount of cap space, but they do have some other big names to sign that are not necessarily UFAs. They have Kachuk, who's an RFA, And I feel like there's somebody else that I'm missing. Shillington, maybe? But anyways, yeah, Gaudreau, definitely one of the more interesting names on this list. Although I feel like I'm just saying all these guys are interesting because the next guy is actually pretty interesting as well, and that is Philip Forsberg. Current cap hit of $6 million. He had 84 points this year, and I get the impression that he is not going to be staying in Nashville. I'm guessing Nashville is going to be going in a somewhat of a rebuilding direction. Either way, they're not really a contender, and I'm not sure that Forsberg is going to want to stick around. If he wants to win, I think there's going to be other places that are better suited for that. He is going to be getting a raise, so with the cap situation around the league, I'm not sure how many teams there are that are competitive now that could afford him. Um, but yeah, will be really interesting to see where Forsberg goes. Jeez. Next, we have Andre Palat, 5.5 million cap hit this season, 49 points. I think that's a reasonable cap hit for him. I'm not sure he's going to get a huge raise. Uh, I'm also not sure that Tampa's going to be able to keep him. I actually haven't really looked at their cap situation, but generally speaking, they have been pretty close to the cap or even over the cap in the playoffs the last couple of seasons. So they did lose a lot of players last season. Really impressive that they were still able to make the finals again. But Palat, maybe another cap casualty. Maybe he goes to a team like Dallas, please. Dallas needs scoring. But we'll see. So next on the list we have Max Domi. Played pretty well this year, actually. Played pretty well with Carolina. I would kind of be surprised if Carolina doesn't push to bring him back. Probably at a smaller cap hit. But yeah, I thought he played very well, fit in really well in Carolina. So that would be a guy I suspect they're gonna try to bring back. Another guy from Carolina, Nino Niederreiter. Not really that impressed by him this season. 5.25 million cap hit. Not a huge difference maker. Good depth scorer on a contender. So again, if Carolina can bring him back, I suspect they're going to be trying to do that. But they, I think actually Carolina does have a reasonable amount of cap space. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they probably could bring those guys back if they wanted to. On the list, we have Riley Smith. Again, this is a guy I suspect Vegas is going to try to bring back, but they are in all kinds of cap trouble. So I don't think they're going to be able to afford him as much as they would like to keep him. When I think of the Vegas Golden Knights, I kind of think of him and like Mark Stone and then Fleury, but obviously Fleury's not there anymore. So it'll be really interesting to see how like their culture changes, I guess, without Smith, but that is kind of a hard thing to quantify, especially just by looking at how they play on the ice. But yeah, that's a guy who I suspect will be going to another team. Does he go to another team in the Pacific? Seattle, maybe? They should be able to afford him. That would be interesting. Next we have Andrei Burakovsky. Probably going to be leaving the Avalanche. I can't imagine the Avalanche are going to be able to afford him, especially considering they have a couple other big names on this list. Uh, One of those being, of course, Nazem Kadri, who has a 4.5 million cap hit this season and had a career year. He's going to be getting a pretty big raise. Uh, if the Avalanche could really bring back any one player, I suspect it'll be Nichushkin because he is probably the most affordable and he plays really well with Rantanen, McKinnon, and Landeskog. So, man, I don't know. Maybe they put Landeskog on the second line next season and they put Nichushkin on the top line because I think that's where you're going to get the most value out of him. He's a guy that confuses me. I'm a Dallas fan, and he did not really play well in Dallas. And then here he comes into Avalanche and just absolutely crushes it. Go figure. But yeah, Kadri and Burakovsky. Kadri obviously had the best season out of those three guys. Burakovsky is really streaky, so I don't think it's too much of a loss that they lose him. Kadri is definitely a big loss, but if it's between him and Nichushkin's going to be a lot more valuable, so that gives him a little bit more flexibility, and they also have to keep in mind that they're going to have to be re-signing McKinnon after next season or 2 seasons from now. I think they have 1 year left on the McKinnon deal, and he's going to get a pretty big raise as well. So I think they're going to be looking long term, especially if they win the cup this year. There's not going to be as much pressure, I guess, to win again. But yeah, I mean, obviously, when you win the cup, you kind of want to bring the band back together for another run. But I think Kadri, quite simply, has just priced himself out of Colorado. Okay, so the rest of these guys on the forwards are not super interesting. Evander Kane is an interesting one. 2.1 million cap hit this season, had 39 points in 43 games, looked really, really good in Edmonton, as much as I hate to say that. But yeah, he will be getting a pretty big contract. We also have the situation with the Sharks, where is his contract going to with the Sharks going to get terminated and they're going to get a cap penalty? Probably. We'll see how that goes, but I suppose apparently that's not going to be dealt with until after free agency opens up, most likely. So that throws a whole another worm into that can, I guess. Uh, but yeah, I do want to. I am going to be talking about defensemen and goalies as well, so I don't want to spend too much time on these guys. Another one I do want to mention really quick though is Andrew Kopp, 3.64 million cap hit this season. 53 points, looked really, really good in New York. If I was a Rangers fan, I would, if out of all of their UFAs, I'd really, really want to bring back Kopp. There's rumors that they're going to trade Kako, maybe even do that to have more space to bring back Kopp. I don't know. Make it work. Vetrano's also on this list. He looked good for them in the playoffs. I didn't watch too much of them in the regular season, so I can't really speak to that. But Kopp looked amazing for them in the playoffs and just fit right into their system. So if there's any guy they're going to want to bring back, I think it's going to be Kopp. Finally, I do want to mention really quick Ryan Donato because I do kind of have a soft spot for him. League minimum deal this season and 31 points. Still hasn't really hit that potential that he had when he was drafted. And at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say he's never going to be like a really bona fide top six guy in the National Hockey League, but a middle six guy who can score. Uh, Not bad at all. Should still get a raise, I would think. I'm not certain that Seattle's going to bring him back, but wherever he goes, uh, should get a decent deal. And he's a good hockey player. So good job, Donato. Next, we got our defenseman. The top guy on the list in terms of cap hit, anyways, is PK Subban. This is a guy who could retire. I'm honestly not certain. He's been doing a lot of analyst work after the regular season with ESPN, I think, or not ESPN, no, TNT. Anyways, only had 22 points this season. I didn't watch a lot of New Jersey, but I can't imagine he looked very good. I know that he had a lot of like slew footing incidents that he mostly was not penalized for or suspended for. He might have been fined a couple of times, but yeah, not a player with the greatest reputation at this point, and that cap hit is absolutely huge for what he provided this season. So if he does play again, I suspect it'll be on like a $1 or $2 million deal in a depth role somewhere. Then we have Chris Letang, who is probably the biggest name of free agent defenseman this season. 7.25 million cap hit. I suspect that's pretty much around what he's going to make. He might get a slight raise. Did have 68 points this season. Of course, there is the injury risk with Letang, but still really good. And he's another guy that gives Pittsburgh problems. Are they gonna try to resign these guys and go for it again, or are they gonna let them go and try to contend for a cup elsewhere, or just make some coin elsewhere? Uh, that's yet to be seen. These guys on Pittsburgh definitely one of the more interesting teams to look at this offseason. Next, we have Nick Leddy, 24 points this season, and I'll be honest, didn't see him a lot with Detroit. I did watch a good amount of him with St. Louis after the trade deadline, and he did not look good. Not really certain why that was the player St. Louis went for, but I I don't know. Well, I'm not an NHL GM, so there's that. But yeah, he did not look good in St. Louis. 5.5 million cap hit as well. Definitely not going to be making that much money if he does play again. He's a guy that could retire. He is older. He's 34, I think, maybe 35. Might be a bit younger than that, but yeah. As you can see, there's not a ton of huge names for defensemen this year. We've got John Klingberg, which is another probably the second biggest name after Letang. Played pretty well in Dallas this year. Only had 47 points, but of course Dallas doesn't really score goals, so that is largely the system. I would think he's going to get a pretty substantial raise. In terms of like advanced analytics, I do believe Klingberg was pretty much the best player the Stars had this season, especially in the playoffs. Played well in the first round against Calgary as well. I don't think he's going to be back in Dallas, so Dallas is going to have to find somebody on defense. Are they going to go with Thomas Harley and give him that expanded role? Maybe. They have a new coach now and Peter DeBoer, so Bonus never really seemed to like to play rookies very much. DeBoer is a little bit better with rookies, so maybe they just give Harley an expanded role. If that happens, I can't imagine they're going to be a lot better next season unless they make some significant additions to their forward core. But yeah, with the whole like rumors about him wanting out, requesting a trade, and then not getting traded, that's kind of awkward. So I don't really think Klinger's going to be back in Dallas. And wherever he goes, I do think he's going to get a substantial raise. Next, we have Josh Manson, who only had 16 points in the regular season this year, but he's been very clutch for Colorado in the playoffs, and I suspect he's going to get paid because of that. If I was Colorado, I would really want to bring this guy around. He's actually fit in there really well, but they're also stacked on defense, so it's not a huge priority. So this is a guy I could see going either way. If he does stay in Colorado, I suspect he's going to take a pay cut to stay there. But if he goes somewhere else, he could make roughly around the same amount of money because of his playoff run. But I don't know. We'll see. Next guy I want to talk about is Nikita Zadorov. $3.75 million cap hit, 22 points this year, and he's just a big physical defenseman that nobody likes to play against. I personally kind of strongly dislike Zadorov, but most people would agree that he's a guy that you would want to have on your team. You know, kind of like a Brad Marchand. Everybody hates him, except if he's on your team, then he's one of your favorite players. Yeah, Ben Sherratt, $3.5 million cap hit, only 26 points this year. I'm not really sure what all the hype about Sherratt was. There was a lot of talk about him at the trade deadline. Uh, Not really a big fan of Sherratt. I don't really see the offense there. Um, yeah, that'll be an interesting one to look for. And after that, it's just a bunch of kind of depth guys, I guess. Justin Braun, probably not going to retire. I would guess he's still got a couple years left, I think, in him. Keith Yandel is a guy who probably retires, I would imagine. Mark Pesic, a really solid guy at for depth, could also play forward if you want. Really loved him in Dallas. And yeah, that's about it for defensemen. Moving on to the goaltenders. So the goaltender with the highest cap hit for this past season and free agency this year is Marc-Andre Fleury. He did not have a really good season, I don't think, in Chicago. He did get better as the season went along and then was traded to Minnesota. I don't think he played particularly well in Minnesota, but I didn't really see a lot of him. I just saw the playoffs where he didn't really look that good. Overall, did have a 908 save percentage and has expressed a desire to play again. So I suspect he will be going to a team that maybe hopefully plays a little bit better defense and maybe he can go for another cup run. We'll see. Next, we have Mikko Koskinen, who actually, I believe, has already signed in Finland, so we could take him off the list. Next, we have Darcy Kemper, then 4.5 million cap it this season. Really up and down season for Kemper this year. Started off really badly with the Avalanche. Still had a good record, obviously, because the Avalanche are a wagon. But then really blew up in the second half of the season in a good way. Ended the season with a 921 save percentage, which is really good actually, and has not really played that well in the playoffs though. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Avalanche tried to go with somebody else next year, but they did trade, I believe, a second round pick and, or it might have been actually, I believe it was their first round pick and Connor Timmins for him. So that's a pretty big price to pay just for a rental. Of course, if they win the cup, and it's looking like that is pretty likely, then it is kind of worth it. But it does feel a little bad if he walks, given that price tag. So it wouldn't surprise me if they tried to re-sign him as well. Next, we have Braden Holtby, $2 million cap hit this season, 913 save percentage. Played really well in Dallas. He did get hurt a little past halfway point of the season and never played again after that. So a little bit troubling. I don't exactly remember what the injury is, but I assume he will be healthy for next season and somebody will give him a shot because he did play well in Dallas. Another guy with a $2 million cap hit this season was Martin Jones. And Jones finally was able to put up a 900 save percentage this year, exactly 900. And that is on a very bad Flyers team that plays very bad defense. So that is actually kind of impressive for Jones. Had a really good first half of the season. Kind of tailed off at the second half. Dipped below 900 though, and then he managed to claw it back up. So good job, Jones. I suspect he will get another backup gig somewhere, probably for less than $2 million though. Yeah, other guys, Soup is available, 914 save percentage this year. Had a kind of like Kemper, up and down season. Really good first half, pretty bad second half. Uh, Kind of a wild card for me. I'm not sure exactly what type of cap hit he's going to get or what team he's going to go for if he resigns in Toronto. I kind of get the vibe that he's not going to resign in Toronto, but I know Toronto fans love him, so I'm assuming they'll be happy if he sticks around. And I don't know. It seems like a decent fit, but goalies are goalies. He again had a bad second half of the season. Has never really been a starter, and maybe that contributed to him falling off. But who knows? Toronto's goalie situation is weird. Other notable guys are Scott Wedgwood, played really well in Dallas, played pretty well in Arizona too. $825,000 cap at this season. He's going to be getting a raise. I would imagine Dallas would be pretty interested in bringing him back as their backup, assuming it's not Holtby. So then they'll roll out with an Ottinger Wedgwood tandem again next season, and those two guys together looked really, really good this season. So he is a free agent, could go somewhere else, but I do suspect Dallas is going to try to bring him back. Casey DeSmith had a really good season, uh, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes. David Riddick had a really bad season. He is pretty young though, so I'm assuming he's going to get another deal with an NHL team somewhere, probably as a backup. But yeah, 86 save percentage this season. It on the bright side, it's hard to put up a save percentage worse than that. So he should be better next season. But yeah, other guys we got Subban, not really an NHL level goaltender in my opinion, but he has a name. Somebody will sign him. He'll probably be second or third goalie somewhere. Ville Husso, 919 save percentage this year, stole the starting job from Bennington in the second half of the season. Played really, really well for St. Louis. Uh, didn't play great in the playoffs. Kind of lost the starting role to Bennington. Although Bennington had a pretty bad regular season, so I imagine another team is gonna try and get Husso and make him their starter, and then St. Louis is probably gonna be rolling with Bennington again, which kind of makes sense for both the team and the players involved because Bennington is on that pretty big contract. So you don't want to have too much money tied up in goaltending, and Husso kind of showed that he could. I guess he earned a pretty big contract, I should say, from somebody. So it'll be interesting to see where Huso goes. Okay, guys, that is it for this video. Do give it a like if you thought it deserved one. I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you for watching. I will put another video right above me, right up here. If you do want to stick around and watch another video, that would be pretty awesome. If not, that's cool too. Whatever you do, have a nice day.